The BYD Atto 3 enters the crowded market for compact family-sized crossover EVs, though this fresh Chinese contender is a little less compact than its mass-market rivals, and in some ways a little cleverer too. It's the alternative you probably won't have considered, but possibly should.
So, yet another Chinese-branded small EV. Following MG and GWM Aura, we now have BYD, which launched in the UK market with this car, the Atto 3. The brand letters stand for Build Your Dreams, and the company is actually a huge global player. In 2022, they sold nearly 1.9 million EVs and plug-in hybrids. Apart from a few E6 MPV electric taxis though, the Atto 3 is the first BYD product we've seen here. Its name derived from the word attosecond, which apparently is 1/quintillionth of a second. They already love this car in China, but there it's called the Yuan Plus. This, of course, is just the start of BYD's product offensive, overseen by a UK dealer network that'll grow from around 30 to about 100 outlets by 2025. By then, we may be seeing this Shenzhen-based company's Yangwang premium EV brand, and that'll bring us luxury sports cars and SUVs. But let's start with a look at this Atto 3. So what's it like? Well, you press the start button and the BYD graphics fire up on both these screens. Then they're replaced by clear white background displays. There's a small one for the instrument dial here, and there's a big one for the infotainment screen. You're ready, but for what? The performance on offer here won't be beyond your dreams unless those dreams happen to be somewhat modest, nor more significantly will the 261-mile range figure you'll get from the 60.5 kilowatt-hour battery, despite the battery's uniquely dense blade-style construction. It powers a single 201 bhp electric motor mounted on the front axle rather than on the rear, as would be the case with the rival Volkswagen, 𝗙cie or 𝗶𝗄 model in this class. The Atto 3 doesn't pointlessly hurl itself at the horizon from the get-go, but performance is pleasantly eager. There are 3 drive modes, Eco, Normal and Sport, with not a huge amount of difference between them, but you will of course need Sport if you're going to achieve the quoted 7.3 second 0 to 62 miles an hour time. That's about a second faster than comparable Kia Niro EV or Skoda Enyaq iV60 models. Not that this should suggest handling dynamics tailored for those who like their driving or anything. On the contrary, as you might expect, the multi-link rear suspension with its soft springs has been set up here to prioritise comfort, as most likely owners will doubtless want. It's better even than most Citroens we've tried, and that is very impressive. If you do feel the need to push on, if you're running late around a twisting secondary route, you can expect very able levels of cornering traction and the usual EV typical 99 miles an hour top speed. Provided you can overlook the weird, otherworldly pedestrian acoustic noise this car emits at low speeds, you should, like us, find refinement to be excellent, and that's not always the case with EVs in this class. That'll be a boon when you're cruising, where you'll also benefit from the standard adaptive cruise control system, which is fitted across the range. As with most EVs, you can vary the amount of regenerative braking, in this case via a toggle on the center console that lets you switch between standard and high regen, although there really isn't very much difference between those two settings, and even the fiercer option won't suit you if you want the kind of one pedal experience which is promised by some manufacturers of rival EVs. At a glance, for several reasons, you might be left a bit unsure of what this Atto 3 model is. In terms of brand, there's a kind of, I can't quite place it, MG sort of vibe. You might also be a touch undecided in terms of this Chinese model's size, where the positioning is a bit large for models in the compact hatch Kia Niro EV, Volkswagen ID.3 electric segment, and a bit small if you're looking at something in the sector just above, like a Volkswagen ID.4 or a Hyundai Ioniq 5. Dimensionally then, the Atto 3 straddles two sectors, bit like the Škoda Enyaq iV, one of its closest rivals. The crossover styling is a touch blander than one of those, but it's smart in a conservative kind of way, and it's enlivened by that silver textured D-pillar panel. The rear is smart. This tailgate's notable for being the only one in the industry with the manufacturer's slogan emblazoned on it. A slim chrome strip sits above narrow LED light clusters, and a subtle roof spoiler features further up. It's a lot more memorable inside, where there's a clear design layout with some unexpectedly quirky touches. First impressions take in the small instrument screen here and the huge central display. Then as you survey this two-tone interior, you'll start to note little design touches. The weird door pull catch on top of the circular speaker, the strange tubular silver gear selector, and just below that a start-stop button with a twinkling outer frame, a textured top for the stowage bin between the seats, air vents like old CD racks, the stitched dash top covering, and door bins which are impractically framed by guitar string-like cords. The main feature of note though is this central electric rotary touchscreen, which will be either 12.8 inches or, as in this case, an enormous 15.6 inches in size, depending on the trim level you've chosen. Strangely, it can rotate to display in either landscape or portrait formats via a push of a provided steering wheel button. BYD thinks it's safer to use the landscape screen for media functions and the portrait screen for the sat-nav. You can rotate it via a lower screen icon too. The home screen initially displays your favoured content widgets, for example navigation, Spotify and radio. Swipe left and you'll reach a screen full of smaller icons, including a smart charging section and screens for the activation of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, and activation of the BYD Assistant voice activation system. Climate controls are also located on the screen, although thankfully there are also shortcut buttons for ventilation scattered around the gear stick. The much smaller digital instrument screen has a much more restricted 5-inch space to show its information, but it's pretty clearly laid out. There's a central digital speedo that's flanked by kilowatt energy consumption on the left and driving range and a battery charge meter on the right. The prevailing speed limit is posted at the top, while along the bottom of the frame is your chosen drive mode, the gear selected and an odometer. What else? Well, the seats are comfortably supportive, although they need the addition of adjustable lumbar support, and cabin quality is better than the kind of thing that you'll find in rival Chinese brands MG and GWM Aura, although there is still scope for improvement. Weirdly, there's no auto wiper function, but there's plenty of storage in the aforementioned deep lidded bin between the seats here, although it lacks any connectivity ports. At the bottom of the center stack, there's a wireless charging mat. Just below the gear stick, there is twin cup holders as well. The glove box is big, but it's not cooled. You do get ticket clips in the sun visors, but not an overhead sunglasses compartment. And we did mention the strange stringed door bins. They're not very big either. Let's take a look in the back. Rear legroom here is good, even by the impressive EV class standard, and there's a flat floor, although this bench here doesn't slide or recline. The headroom is a little restricted by this standard panoramic glass roof, but you could fit 3 folk across the back seat here if you had to, more easily than you could with most rivals. If there are only 2 of you, a central armrest folds down and there are cup holders provided, along with curiously styled vertically orientated twin rear vents, although there's no option for the kind of rear climate controls that you could have in a Golf. There are both USB-A and USB-C ports with a cubby below. There are seat back pockets with twin phone pockets just above, individual round upper reading lights, coat hooks in the grab handles, and the strange stringed door pocket and door catch design is replicated from the front. You do pay for that rear seat legroom a bit with boot space. You only get this powered tailgate with this top design level of trim. And when it eventually rises, a 440 litre space is revealed. That's 35 litres less than the slightly smaller Kia Niro EV. You can add this practical rubber covering for the boot floor, and beneath the cargo base there's a surprisingly deep well, although in UK models, unfortunately, that doesn't house any sort of spare wheel. There are deep corner netted storage areas on both sides and a light on the left, but strangely no bag hooks or tie-down points, no 12-volt socket either. Nor does BYD provide a ski hatch or a flexible 40-20-40 rear seat back split. If you push forward the 60-40 split backrest, there's 1,338 litres of space available here. Interestingly, for an unknown brand, BYD isn't looking to substantially undercut its main competitors on price. Atto 3 pricing starts at around £36,500 for the base spec active variant. You need around £37,000 for mid-range comfort and about £39,000 for the top design trim we have here. As we told you in our driving section, all versions are based around the same powertrain combination of a 60.5 kilowatt-hour battery and a 201 bhp motor. You order online, but all purchases go through the brand's UK dealer network. That's currently 30 strong. BYD's big market advantage is that, unlike other brands, it makes all its EV drivetrain components itself. Batteries, motors, control units, semiconductors, the lot, which is why instead of waiting months for your car, as is currently the case with EVs from some other brands in the segment, an Atto 3 can be with you in no more than a couple of weeks. And it'll be very well equipped. Even base active spec gives you quite a lot. There are 18-inch wheels, LED automatic headlights with high beam assist, LED tail lamps, roof rails, a panoramic electric sunroof, a heat pump and metallic paint. Parking is aided by camera and all-round sensors, and you get adaptive cruise control with an intelligent speed limiter. Inside, even with base active spec, there's vegan leather upholstery with power adjustment and heating for the front seats. Plus there's multicolour ambient lighting, a wireless charging mat and a 5-inch TFT LCD instrument panel. Media connectivity, well, that's taken care of by a 12.8-inch electric rotary touchscreen with voice control, an 8-speaker DAB audio system, 4G internet access and the company's BYD DI-Link suite of media systems. There's also an 8-year cloud service that gives you 1.5 gigabytes of data per month for free for the first 2 years. And you'll get a useful vehicle to load function so you can charge things like laptops and power tools from the vehicle. Mid-range comfort spec is the same, except the base version's feeble 7 kilowatt onboard charger is raised to 11 kilowatt status. This top design trim doesn't get you much extra apart from a larger 15.6-inch version of the electric rotary touchscreen, a powered tailgate, an air purification system and a bit of extra ambient lighting. All Atto 3 models get the same extremely high standard of safety kit. There's a forward collision warning system with automatic emergency braking, rear collision warning, there's rear cross traffic alert, there's lane keep assistance, lane change assist, emergency lane keep, traffic sign recognition and a full suite of airbags, and that includes a front center airbag. We did say that there was a lot. The battery used here is of the unique to BYD lithium iron phosphate blade variety, which incorporates cells mounted in the strips directly to the pack, which the Chinese maker says allows for a much higher cell density than a conventional battery could offer. So a much higher driving range then? Well, I'm afraid not. The 261-mile range is reasonably class competitive, but it's way off being class leading. A Mark II Hyundai Kona Electric, probably the closest rival here, manages 304 miles, for example. BYD claims an efficiency figure of 3.98 miles per kilowatt hour. Expect more like 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour in the real world, and that wouldn't take you far over the 200-mile mark in regular use. To preserve driving range in cold conditions, a heat pump is standard, and this draws warmth into the cabin from the surrounding ambient air, and that's something that's normally a pricey extra in this segment. You'd think that BYD, building, designing and owning this car's entire set of EV drivetrain components, and that includes the battery and the semiconductors, would allow the company to make the Atto 3 the first car in this segment to offer a truly modern 800-volt electrical architecture that's capable of allowing charging with the new breed of ultra-rapid DC public chargers. This is something that we've already seen with the only slightly larger Hyundai Ioniq 5, but no, it's the same conventional 400-volt setup that everyone else uses. Added to that, the entry model only gets it with a feeble 7 kilowatt onboard charger. From mid-spec comfort trim upwards, a proper 11 kilowatt charging unit comes included, which, when it's connected to a public 150 kilowatt DC charger, allows the Atto 3 to be charged to a modest maximum of 88 kilowatts. At that speed, a 30 to 80% boost takes 29 minutes. An AC charge from a home 7 kilowatt wall box takes 9 hours and 42 minutes from empty to full. If you've avoided base trim and you can use an 11 kilowatt three-phase charger, that figure falls to 6.5 hours. You can schedule charging via a smart charging section of the central screen. If you're converting to an electric vehicle from a previous combustion model, then you'll obviously need to factor in the cost of an EV charger for your home and perhaps also one for your office. There is still complexity around the best charging hardware to choose and exactly who is eligible for a government grant. And obviously the costs can vary depending on your distance from your main meter to your charger and other factors. There's lots of advice out there, of course, to guide you in this. We consulted 𝗞𝗲𝘆 and they offer customers everything from choice of charger to installation and ongoing maintenance. They've advised us that even with increased energy charges, the cost of running an EV and charging it at home on a dedicated tariff is still only around half the cost of running your previous petrol or diesel car. What else? Well, you can monitor your kilowatt energy consumption on the left of the instrument screen, and when you power off, an instrument display sign-off shows driving range, driving time and energy consumption. As for ownership peace of mind from what is, let's face it, an unfamiliar brand, well, there's a 4-year, 74,500 mile warranty, and the battery is warranted to retain at least 70% of its capacity for 8 years or 124,000 miles. Residual values from this unknown brand are yet to be determined, but they will lag slightly behind the more familiar players. So, yet another option to add to your list if you're seeking a compact but family-shaped crossover-style EV. We're surprised that BYD hasn't priced the Atto 3 a touch lower to give customers more reason to switch from an established brand. But there's no doubt that you do get an awful lot for what you're paying here. And that includes a greater slice of interior tech than you might expect at this price point. Interestingly, BYD, which wasn't even making cars until 20 years ago, describes itself as a technology company rather than a car brand, which shows itself here with this model's uniquely dense blade battery and its standard heat pump. So there's more to this Atto 3 than meets the eye. BYD certainly has big plans for it and for the UK. The company already owns 95% of our electric bus market. It probably produces a battery in your smartphone or your laptop. And in future, it wants to sell you your car too. Maybe not this one, but it's well worth a look.